on why this is happening. So going back to the beginnings of this process, first of all, started about 2 years ago. So going back to the beginnings of the process, we were working with a third party who said, you guys are sitting on some incredible science and the world needs to know. This was 2 years ago, before we had proper reports and before the world kind of got a flavor for who we were. We were working clinically here in Toronto, hands-on, not really far beyond that. And we were more of a research company. And somebody said, you need to write a book, because it's one thing to be testing. It's a whole other thing to, put something out there that everybody can get their hands on, that isn't submitting a saliva sample. It's something that they can learn and educate themselves on, so that everyone knows that this should be part of their toolkit. Like right now, the average person still doesn't know that this is a very crucial and integral part of their health journey, right? So from that point forward, we started working with this professional who represented 80 best-selling and famous health and wellness offers. So doctors, nutritionists, different people that you would recognize, that all have best-selling books. They said, this is what they do. They're really good at it, and they will make sure that we have a publisher that publishes this book and gets the word out there. So we spent about 5 months with this partner and got rejected by every single publisher that you could possibly get rejected by. And we're told that this book should not be written and I should not be writing it, and we need to find a scientist or a doctor that understands genetics and try and make something that is credible in nature, and this would not be credible. And I said, that is the entire point. The entire point is we have a broken healthcare system where even you, the publisher, doesn't understand that there is health beyond sick care that the doctors that you're publishing don't get yet. And again, this is going back to, a lot has changed post-COVID. We know that a lot has changed, but pre-COVID, this would have been completely novel thinking, right? And so we decided not to work together. And I went and looked through the list of publishers they spoke to and found one in particular that I thought had the right values, had the right people that they had published, would probably get the message. And I literally called them myself. I called them and I said, I think you guys made a mistake. You didn't understand what we're trying to do here. And luckily I got put through to the right people. And 3 days later, they asked us to write a book. So 6 months of working with the top people in the field, couldn't get it done. 3 days of making a single phone call, we were literally offered a publishing deal and said, this needs to happen. This book needs to be put out there. A process that normally takes months and weeks, weeks or months. And so that's what happened. Just to give you the background story of why this book even came to life. And the publisher agreed with the vision. They agreed that baseline, helping people understand how genomics can be a tool in their toolkit, how I used it to heal myself and my family and other people around us, and the story of how that turned into a company that now helps people and helps people around us. And I recognize some of the names here that are here live, and I know a lot of people will get the recording after the fact. And you've been through the same journey with us of using this tool to support yourself and your health journey, and knowing that personalization is super impactful when it comes to trying to answer all these questions, right? So that's why the book came to be. Then what was the book? The book had to be, again, I've read content on genetics, on science, and all of what I had seen until that point, the thing that they had told me that we were missing, I was not a scientist and I was not a doctor, was the exact problem that I found in all the other books. They were written by scientists and doctors for scientists and doctors. There's a certain flavor of academia that prevents the average person from accessing knowledge. The same exact information can be presented in a way where it's very complex and hard to grasp, or where it's very simple and to the point and I can action it. Same information, same outcome. It's just the language used and the sort of nomenclature and those types of things. And so this was the mission. How do we put together a book that allows the world to see what I wished I had seen when my healthcare journey started, which was a simple guide, somebody's story, which happened to be my own, of how easy it was to use these tools to change my trajectory, my health trajectory, which had truly changed. So what was the outcome for me? Some of you know this already. When we started this journey, I was a 43-year-old man on the inside. Meanwhile, according to my birth certificate, I was 38. Biologically tested as 43 with 5 chronic conditions. I now actually am 43 and biologically 33. So not only did I heal the conditions, not only do I no longer have the conditions, I was able to build a time machine and go back to the time when truly I started getting sick around 33, and 38 was when it was bad. Go back and I have a second chance. I have a second start at this exact same time, because whatever number of years I've been alive versus how old I am biologically, the second one is it tells me more how long I'm going to be on this planet. Right. And so I literally was able to wind back to that beginning point of where my chronic condition started, where health started to fall apart, and I'm starting over again. And that is the message that I wanted to share with everybody in the book. And I was hoping that it would inspire people to do that. The second big one is what I understood is until I got sick, I didn't know how broken healthcare is, and that healthcare actually is sick care. And this is spoken of directly in the book. And for anyone that hasn't been on the journey yet, my intention was that by putting the book out there and having the right people share and talk about it, that as a preventative measure, people should understand what this healthcare system looks like. Because outwardly, it looks incredible. You drive by hospitals, you see clinics, you hear about doctors, and you feel safe. You feel like there's a safety net for you to fall onto. But in the context of thinking that a disease is going to drive you there, which you don't even know you don't need to have. Right. And this is why the first half of the book, and some of you have already started reading it, the first half is more about the system itself, the problem, and we don't even get into the solution until the second half, because to me, that was a big aha moment myself. This book is my journey. It was me saying, this system is so screwed up, and I can't believe with all the money we spend, these are our options. And I can't believe that me, a layman who just started my health and wellness journey, quickly found so many other solutions that are so useful that they are not available, that they're out of reach, that the decision makers decide that those are not what we do. What we do is we wait to get sick and then we mask it. And that's what gets paid for. And so people that are restricted by what their insurance covers or what their health system allows are limited in choice. And that is the lay of the land, which leads to part 2 of the book, why we're all so sick, right? The lay of the land, the infrastructure, the system, being a sick care system was a big aha moment for me. This is what led me to, I feel the way I feel, because I didn't know there was anything I needed to do to not get there. My education and my health was go do whatever you want. And when something breaks, it's the doctor's job to fix you. There's nothing you need to know to not break something. That was it. That was all I knew until that point. And so that's exactly what happened to me. I broke many things and I got sick, and then I ended up fixing them myself. So that was the intention behind the book. That's why I wrote it. In terms of anyone that has their testing done, which I think a lot of the people here do, it becomes a guide for you to use and implement your results with a little bit more in-depth thinking. It becomes a sort of a practical, actionable map. Is there a living case study, right, of me and all my systems for you to then either feel that something resonates with you, or it's the opposite of you, which still derives and directs your thinking, because whether you're the same or you're the opposite, you understand what to action, right? So it becomes that guide. For those of you that haven't been tested, it shows you what's possible. Whether you have testing or not, it still teaches you how to think about your health. It teaches you how to think about a different way than the sick care model that we all rely on. So that was the intention. That's how the book was structured. We then got to the point where we wrote it, and a good friend, Dave Asprey, who has written several books, several New York Times bestselling books, I asked for advice. I said, hey, I just finished writing this thing. And some of you may have noticed the name Rod Thorne on there. So Rod Thorne is a friend. He used to write, he ran the communications departments for major Fortune 500 companies, which means that he would have teams of 100+ people working underneath him that did all the speech writing and all the responding to media for big companies like Kodak and I think Pepsi. He was very senior in those companies. So he's now retired. And I wrote the book, and then he agreed to work with me to, as my first go around, becoming an author, became a different version of myself, sprinkled some of his magic in it as well. And I really enjoyed that process, working with him and in learning from a pro who's done it so many times, how to how to express the emotion that I've never put in writing before, right? How to take the feelings I've had, the thoughts I've had, and put it down in writing. So he taught me and helped me with that. And so you see his name on the cover. And the thing that I was just saying is that I asked my friend Dave Asprey, who's helped us so much in terms of this company coming to market, hey, you've written several New York Times bestselling books. Do you mind taking a peek at this and seeing what you think? What do I need to change? Because once it's out there, it's too late. It's printed, it's published, right? Then writing. So he saw it and he loved it, and he agreed to write the foreword. He said, I'm going to write a foreword because this is something new. This is something that he wanted to put his name on, and he did. So he agreed to write a foreword, which at that time I didn't even know I needed, being a first-time author, right? I then went to a couple other people, Dr. Gundry, who, our friendship has sort of evolved over time. I've seen him at various conferences. It started with me chasing him around saying, can I please work with you to some degree? And now to the point where, he ships my mom supplements, and he's messaging me on Instagram, and we're following up with each other. So he's become a friend. So I asked him as a friend, do you mind taking a peek at the book? And I sent him a digital copy. And within 2 days, I got back he said, here's a testimonial. I want you to put this on the book. I said, wow, that's incredible. So he went through the book in 2 days, which means that he must have enjoyed it. And he then said, I want to put my name on it, like a testimonial, which you'll see on the back of the book. The same thing happened with 2 other people that I reached out to for help, which was Dr. Mindy Pelz, who's written many New York Times selling, sorry, I'm not sure if they're New York Times, but they're best-selling books, I know. And she has a current book that's out that is a major hit. And we're actually have the same publisher, so she's also working with Hay House. So, and then Joe DeSena, who runs Spartan Race. It's the largest endurance race in the world. I think he has like 10 million customers. So I asked them for help, and same thing. They both said, I'll put my name on the book and I'll give you a testimonial. And so that was kind of the journey we went through to get to all of what you see in the front and back cover and everything in between. And the last thing that happened, which you haven't seen yet, is Hay House, our publisher, is also very big in the UK, right? And so there's a UK launch that's coming. And recently, I got introduced to a gentleman named Bear Grylls. So he you may have seen a show called Man vs. Wild, where this guy goes out into the wilderness and he will figure out how to get water, and he'll eat bugs, and he'll pick apart bear poop and find the berries in it, and he'll live off of it. So it's this guy that truly lives off the land with zero supplies. He's had a long-running TV show about that, and he has a new one coming out soon. So we are working on him, and he has also written a few books, and he also agreed to put his name on it. So the UK version, which is coming out soon, and then whenever we run the next edition here locally in North America, we'll both have his testimonial name on them. So that's the evolution, how we got from a thought, a need, a desire to sort of connect more prolifically with the world through publishing something in writing, all the way to what you now see and hold in your hand. Most of you actually already have it. And some of you have started reading it. And I appreciate that you value me as an author and the content we have to share with you. And that's the story and background of the book. So moving forward, so first of all, one of the main intentions tonight was you whoever's here, and I know that there was a lot more people that registered that were supposed to be on Tuesday night, and we changed the date, and you'll see this recording. But one of the main intentions was to open the floor to you, since you now have the book in your hand, and if there's any direct thoughts or questions or comments, we're here to discuss that. But one last thought is, because of this publication, it's opening the door for more, meaning that there's so much more the world needs to know. This is step one. Step one is healthcare is broken. Those of you who've been through it already know. There's a reason why it's broken, which we share in the book. There's a solution that we share in the book, but there's so much more we need to know. So I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue writing. I'm going to continue putting books out there in terms of how do we apply this to parenting? How do we apply this to female health? A very big problem that's underserved. And I talk about a lot. The female healthcare system is completely broken. It's probably the worst part of healthcare. How do we apply this to anti-aging? It's not just about not being sick. It's about how do I live 10 years longer? How do I apply this to sports and athletics? How do I apply this to weight loss? So there's so much we need to talk about. Anyone that's listened to, discussions we've had and has read the book knows that there's a lot more that we know than what's in the book, right? So it's opened the door to so much more coming. And I'm just telling you guys here, whoever's here first, to expect that, and it's my mission now to continue educating. We have a beautiful team in our company, some of whom have joined us here tonight. And as the company grows and does its thing and actually in a practical way helps people, there's products and services. My job is to continue educating the world that they should even think this way, because the average person still has no idea, right? No clue. Every day I talk to people and every day they're like, wow, how is this possible? So there's still a lot of work to do in terms of educating the world, letting people know. So I didn't want to take too much time away from you in terms of me speaking, but I wanted to give you the background of the book, a little bit of the story that we don't talk about publicly in terms of how we work with a publisher and how this even came to be. So just to, want to honor your time and thank you for being early and pre-ordering and committing yourself to something that you didn't even know what it was. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of sort of background on how we even got here. But with that, what I like to do and what really the intention here tonight was to open the floor to you. Some of you have already been through the book and have started reading it. And if there's any questions or thoughts or comments or whatever it may be, let's start dropping them into the Q&A box. So the Q&A box is, if you look at the bottom, where it says polls, Q&A backstage, it's that button. You can even drop them into the chat because we don't have a large group here tonight, so we should be able to cover them. But and that's why we're here tonight. I wanted to open it up to you, and give you the opportunity to speak directly to me about the book. Any genes identified for ALS or myopathies? So ALS is more of a genetic condition, but myopathies are more a response to a load on the system. So let me give you an example. And yes, we do talk about that particularly. So statins, for example, cholesterol drugs. The number one reason people don't comply, and first of all, when you read the book, you'll understand that we don't think we need cholesterol medication. We understand the root cause. But for someone who is on that, and I'm just using this as an example for myopathy, if you don't have the right dose and the genetics behind how you metabolize the active ingredients cause you to metabolize it a little bit slower, which means it's around for longer, which means the same dose that's the average recommendation for everybody is too much for you, it leads to myopathy, right? So that's an example of, you're not born with myopathy. Myopathy is not your identity. Something happened and the body started hurting, right? So what's the thing that happened? So, and this is the way we think about all conditions. We don't look for a cholesterol gene. We don't look for an anxiety gene. We don't look for an autism gene. We look for the system failure. Where is your body failing in biological process? Where then in that process, based on your epigenetic inputs, the things you ate, the things you breathe, the things you did in your lifestyle, does it equal the problem? And this is one example that may lead to myopathy, is you're taking a pill that you can't metabolize properly, which your body then is reacting to. There's many ways you can get to myopathy. There could be an estrogen problem for, and I see, sorry, I lost the name here. So Maddie, if this was in the context of a female body, it could be, well, I have so much estrogen toxicity and I'm on a birth control pill, so I'm fueling that estrogen toxicity, that it leads to, head to toe pain, inflammatory response that gets labeled as myopathy. But so it's an example of, we don't speak to the condition, we speak to the system, and the system is the hub that points to all the conditions, right? So that's kind of how we lay out the book and the testing itself. Is there a quick cheat sheet somewhere for the result code? So in the book, there's a cheat sheet for each section that lays out my results. And there, in terms of, so Cindy, if you are a DNA company customer and you have your report, we have talked about this with some of our customers, more and more so now than ever before, where people are asking for a legend and a guide. So earlier this week, our development team met and agreed that we would build a guide. So your portal, where you log in and see your results, there's going to be a new report, which is just your gene results. There's no documentation, there's no content. It's just, here are your gene results, which in itself acts as a legend, because it's like DRD2, AA, AG, GG, and then it's circled, you're this one, right? But now you know what potential results are. So that's coming, and it's going to be in your portal. So, oh, thank you, Maddie. Trying to answer as best as I could. So it was good. That was satisfying. Yeah, so chapters. So funny enough, so chapters, so you're in Canada. So I found out today that I have to refund my mother, because she sent me a screenshot of going to Indigo, which is a sister company of Chapters, and she went and bought the book. So I was supposed to give her one. I actually don't have any yet. I'm the last to get them. There's a box that was put together to ship to me, and I haven't got them yet. And so she went and bought one and sent me a picture and said, hey, look what I got. And apparently she said it was the last one in the store, which is interesting. That means there's somebody else that also wanted one and there's none left. So this happened in Toronto today. So, so any other thoughts or questions? I want to make sure, like, anything that's been prompted by you reading the book, or anything that you want to know about how the book came together, or anything about, the stories that are in there, even my personal stories that are in there, if you want to know more. That's why we're here tonight. Indigo has not delivered mine either, order April 30th. So that's funny, because some people, I saw a lot of people were messaging me on like Instagram and different places. On the day of the launch, they received them. So May 16th was launch date. And on May 16th, I got a ton of messages from people saying, look at this, here's a picture of my book. I got it. I was surprised at that efficiency, but you should have got it by now. But it obviously, Indigo is not going to lose your order. It's coming. But it should be coming soon. There's been a delay on getting the book from Indigo here in Toronto. Okay, I do know, I mean, I went to the local store here, by the way, on the weekend. There's a Indigo near me, and I went there, but so there's a sort of a toy section in the back, and I go there once in a while whenever there's always kids' birthday parties and stuff. The kids all have friends, and so that's where I tend to go, because it's across the street from the gym that I go to, so it's just very easy. And I was walking through the store, and something caught my eye. Was not prepared for this, and I was like, that looks familiar. What is that? And it was the book. It was sitting there on this wellness shelf. Like, my goodness, I forgot this book is in stores. I literally was not cognizant of this at all, and didn't even realize that it was sitting in store shelves just like other published books. And I saw it sitting there, and I was like, wow. And I picked it up and flipped through it, like, this is surreal. Like, it's sitting. That was the first time actually. No, sorry, the first time I saw it was a conference about 3 weeks ago in Arizona, where a bunch of health and wellness founders came together. And we do this once a year to just share and learn and help the industry in general grow, right? And the publisher sent a bunch of books there for all the founders to receive. And so that was the first time I saw it. And the second time was actually in this bookstore over the weekend, completely accidentally at Indigo in Mississauga, since you mentioned Indigo. So my favorite personal story, wow. So the thing that drove me, well, there's two things. There's one that I talk about and there's one that I don't talk about. The one that I talk about, so that some of you may have heard before, is my niece. And why is that so important? Because when she was healed through her genetic map, the impact of that was I realized we are not a research company. We are healers. We need to be out there and facing people in between them and their healthcare problems. And so that literally was a shift. We went from like biotech research, partner with clinics, partner with hospitals, to how do we get a test in everybody's hand? So very major turning point for the company. And the other important one is the story about, you know, the way I grew up, because I don't talk about that, not because I'm hiding it, it just doesn't come up. And the fact that, you know, my parents used to sleep in the living room and they had this mattress because we had a 2-bedroom, 600 square foot townhouse that we were in. When you would walk into the place, you were in the kitchen, and then there was another room. So there was no lobby, no entrance, tiny place, 2 bedrooms. My sister said, I want my own room, couldn't afford it. My dad was sick, didn't work because of his illness. And so my parents said, okay, we're gonna sleep in the living room. So we took their mattress, cut it in half, and put each half, it was a foam mattress, one half between each of the couches that we would then drop into the living room every night. And when I think about that now, and think about, you know, the inability to, that was the financial limitation, right? Because of my father's health. And because, by the way, my mother was also sick at the time. So both of them weren't working. And that sort of promise that I made to myself to never be like that, right? Not that I thought my father did that to himself. He didn't know, right? He diabetic, cardiovascular disease, gut issues, gout, he couldn't walk. We didn't know. I know they didn't know because I was there, and I had zero ever heard any information about how they didn't need to be how they were. We just thought that's what they had. Just like most people think about healthcare. Those are the things they had. Keep eating what you eat, keep stressing the way you stress, keep sleeping the way you sleep. You have these things. And so I think without that, I wouldn't have been seeking health. So when I got to 38 and I was sick, that was a warning for like, uh-oh, am I going to end up like that? I'm going to take a different route and I'm going to figure this stuff out. So that was a big motivator for me. So Cindy's saying, I'm interested in the exercise section. When I get my results, I would have never thought type of exercise intensity and time of day were related to your genes. Yeah, for sure. So me personally, I work out less now, but I'm in better shape physically, right? So muscle mass, I'm at my ideal weight. I have a little bit more fat than I think I should, and that's probably because of stress and cortisol, because I work a lot, right? But muscle tone, fitness level, energy level, ability to outrun the kids and be the leader physically, right? Instead of just keeping up, they're keeping up with me. It had to do with the fact that my testosterone production is really efficient and high, but the clearance is highly rapid, so it doesn't last long. So I have this sort of profile where I need to continue training, and if I stop, it goes away. But if I train, I get much better results, much faster because of my testosterone levels. But if I don't train on time, what does that mean? That means as soon as I wake up, because that's peak testosterone, right? Or there's a second wind that happens later in the day at around 4 to 6 p.m. And this is the menstrual cycle, you know, the menstrual cycle that happens for women monthly. The menstrual cycle happens every day for men. You're making your hormones in your sleep. You wake up, testosterone is peaked. Then it kind of converts into estrogen, and men become moody during lunchtime. and then you make more testosterone and you become vigorous and a warrior again. And the evening you get more estrogenized again. So for me, that cascade has more of a roller coaster. And so I have to work out at the right time, and I have to work out on time, like scheduled. If I miss a week, I don't hold on to the muscle. There's a change. There's a very obvious change. And now for women, so Cindy, for you, there's even a bigger nuance to discuss, which is that you don't have a daily cycle, you have a monthly cycle. So there's like the follicular phase, there's the luteal phase, there's different phases of your menstrual cycle. And the way you train not only need to change, it's not a weekly schedule, like a typical training schedule is weekly. Here's what my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday looks like. For you, it's a monthly schedule. The weight training that you would do in the first week, you wouldn't do in the second or third week because you're more prone to injury, because the estrogens and estrogen metabolites cause inflammation. You're more likely to need to go into recovery phase and like more like yoga type exercising in the third week, right? And so even between men and women, it's different. So it's very, very important to understand our biology at a foundational level, but then more importantly, to personalize it. Recovery is a big one. So you mentioned, the intensity. Yeah, there's people for whom you see this phenomenon of Olympic sprinters and like tennis players and soccer players that drop dead of a heart attack at like 35. Best doctors, best trainers, best fitness. They look like Ronaldo. You can see not their 6-pack, but their 8-pack. Why do they drop dead at 35? Because some of them don't deal with mitochondrial function and oxidative stress well, and they've compressed 80 years worth of cardiovascular activity into 35. And so they now have crazy inflammation from oxidative stress for which they can't recover because the genetics of their mitochondrial function are off. And they've misaligned their exercise protocol to their biology, and it doesn't equal a good result. So those people should not have done that. They weren't designed to be soccer players. They were designed to be weightlifters, low intensity, high duration type exercise. So yes, in a major way, we can speak to fitness, even just goal setting. Just step one. Step one is, I want to look like Kendall Jenner or I want to look like Kim Kardashian. Those are two very different options, right? What are your hormones driving you towards? Who are you innately? And is your goal aligned to your foundation, right? Here's who you will become if you don't do anything, because you're more estrogenized. You're going to be more bigger, voluptuous type features. There's going to be more fat. You're going to have a rounder face and beautiful hair, beautiful skin, or you're more androgenized. So you're more wiry and thin, and the muscles are more, the fiber stands out. You can see the striated fiber. There's less fat, but there's no curves, there's no features, right? So that body structure is driven by hormones, which is driven by the genes that instruct the hormones. So yeah, you can very precisely determine who you are so that the foundation is understood. And then the path to the goal, whether it's a change, the goal may be, I don't want to look like this, I want to look like that, right? Fine. Now you know what to work on. It's not just calories and treadmill, it's hormone changes, which can be safe, or it's like, I'm embracing who I am and I'm going to be the best version of that, the healthiest version of that. Because keep in mind, if you look at people that are 100, 110 years old, very few of them are professional athletes. So being athletic isn't necessarily a key to longitudinal health. That comes from other things like sleep, stress, emotion, different types of exercise. And I would just point that out because being the best version of yourself may be a healthier choice than how do I become that, right? It depends what your goal is, the visual or the longitudinal health. So Beth is saying, you speak a lot about women's health. Why do you think it's important to speak on and bring attention? And will you potentially, yeah. So the reason why is because that's the area that needs the most support. So in our research phase, we spent 3 years with 7,000 patients to get the insights that we have. So now that we talk about the insights, they seem obvious and easy, but it wasn't easy to collect them. They didn't exist in published literature. Geneticists didn't think the way we think. Clinicians didn't think the way we think. So we had to create the science. And that happened by working with patients. We had to understand the genes. We had to be patient facing, understand the clinical implementation, and we had to document everything we learned. And that's how we built what we have. And what we learned in that was the biggest problem that had the biggest need for support was the female health world. Everything from infertility to menopause to, you know, PMS to horrible menstrual cycle, cramps and pains and all this stuff, which are just taken for granted as part of life. You're a woman, you have hormones, you're gonna have problems. No, what's happening is you're a woman and you have hormones, and your environment and your nutrition and your lifestyle and your emotions and your energy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are not aligned to that innate structure, which leads to a bad outcome. So it starts with understanding your structure, the DNA that you know sort of forms who you are, and then what are the right choices epigenetically, environmentally, nutritionally, you know, fitness, all these things we have to consider, the inputs, the epigenetic inputs. And you don't have to have a crazy rocky female hormone story. That is a result of the sick care industry that doesn't want to look at root cause. It's not designed to look at root cause. So that's why I feel like, yes, we have a hyper focus there. And yes, the next book is about that, which I've already started working on. And yes, the next clinical focus for us, the DNA company exists as you see it. We are now working on a female health brand, let's call it. That's all it's going to do, because that's the biggest problem that needs to be solved. So for certainly, that's something we're going to work on. So any other thoughts or questions, or I'll go back to, and by the way, we blocked some time for this because of originally the couple hundred people or several hundred people that were registered, but they're all, again, we changed the date, so they're going to see the replay, but we'll go for another 15-20 minutes or so, you know, because there's not as many people, there's not as much need to answer questions, and I'll give you your time back. But again, any other thoughts or questions, or I'll go back into a couple other notes I had about the book. If not, I'll keep going. So the other big thought was our youth, right? And for me, every time we have a session with a family or a business or an investor, and when they really, really, really understand what we do, it's always the same thing. Every kid that's born at birth should be given this. Because if I have my human instruction manual in hand, and I can understand how to make the right choice every time you make a choice, you're either moving towards health or away from it. Everything you eat, breathe, feel, every connection you have to any person, it's a step towards health or a step away from it. Every choice you make, right? So the earlier you start, the better your outcome is going to be. So there hasn't been a significant conversation where that isn't where we end. Wow, every kid that's born should get this. So the parents can make choices that are exactly aligned to that kid's needs. And so that's where I start. And so kind of we go off track a little bit in the book, and I start talking about biomedical explorers, and who I feel I now am is a biomedical explorer. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I don't really think of myself as call it a P&L or financial spreadsheet based CEO. I am more a biomedical explorer, and the business is just providing the tools that we find. That's all a byproduct of all of this. So, you know, in that chapter, we talk about kids learning, right? And starting early, because to me, I feel that is really, really important. And that's what I'd say to anyone that's here or anyone that's going to watch the replay. It's not even just about your kids and your family. It's about the schools, right? It's about the daycares and the baseball games you take them to and all the stuff you're doing. Everywhere I go in that context, I see the same parents that are eating organic quinoa, and you know, they only go to the top restaurants because they don't want to eat vegetable seed oils and eat linoleic acid. at a kid's birthday party, all the kids are being served pizza and chips and Coke. And the kids get the worst of it. And because of the convenience factor and because of many other factors, and I'm sure it's not the same thing at home, you'll see it at the kids' baseball games. You go there and after the game, one of the mothers brings a tray of donuts or a tray of ice cream bars or something, right? So we're learning for ourselves and we're not giving our kids the best. And that's why I wrote that chapter and spoke about biomedical explorers and the education system and how kids learn and what motivates them. Because I think our responsibility, everyone here is like, I bought a test, I learned about myself, I'm going to be healthy. I got this book, I'm going to implement a little bit more, learn a little bit more about how this works. I think that's the opportunity, but I think the responsibility is why I wrote that chapter. Responsibility is how do we put this thought into our youth, where they themselves are cognizant and they, if they are on their own at the birthday party, won't eat the Doritos or the cookies, and they will then change their friends around them and say, you should not eat this stuff. There's red dye in these Doritos that are going to affect your brain, and your teacher's going to say you have ADHD. There's sugar in this cookie that's going to cause you an insulin problem, and you're going to start to store fat, and people are going to bully you. Right? Why are we giving them the worst? We should be giving them the best. And we just see it consistently over and over and over again. When you go to any kids event, when you read the kids menu at a restaurant, you'll have all this amazing food with the parents, and the kids menu is chicken fingers and French fries, right? So why are we doing that? Why aren't we getting the kids the best? And this is why that chapter was important, because I wanted people to think about this. Okay, you're going down this journey. You have now become an ambassador because you now know this stuff through testing, through the book, through whatever means. You now know that all this. Who are you ambassador for? First of all, your friends and family, the people close to you, but now the institutions that they're involved in. So when you drop them off to the baseball game or to school or to whatever, it's your job as a person that's now been educated on this matter to instill change, right? So the kids around them are also changing, because it's so much easier for your kids to be who they are in the way you want them to be if the people around them are also that way, right? So that's why I thought that part was important, and it kind of didn't seem relevant. Why are we talking about childhood education in this book? But that's why it was relevant. That's why I thought it was important and impactful. So one other big thought is, so the way the book is written is, there's this initial, like, here's the landscape, here's the problem we're dealing with, right? The second is, here's how the genome instructs various problems and systems. The way the body works, and some of you have been here before, and other lectures we've had know that we talk about systems interacting with each other. So in order to write a book and keep it to a certain number of pages, we can't write everything we know. So the one thing that I would urge you to think about as you're reading is how the systems affect each other. So when we talk about mood and behavior, right? And oh, sorry, there's a couple of questions here. I agree about kids' food, highly processed, so prevalent in the food. Yeah, you go into the grocery store and go look at the kids section, and it's poison, right? That's where it is. And then you go look at where the good, clean stuff is, and it's all for adults, which tells you what our habits are. We treat ourselves better than we treat our kids. Not all day, every day. We have our home cooked meals and we all eat the same food. But when it comes to our parties and our events and our picnicking, our traveling, and our, all that kind of stuff, there's all this convenience food. Convenience is preferred over health. And then you said parents go for convenience. So you just said the exact same thing that I was saying. The convenience is the driver behind all this stuff. It's so easy to pick up that package thing. We're stressed, we don't have time, etc. But this is where your time should go. This is a priority. What chapters cover the youth aspect? So when you get into the biomedical explorers chapter, we talk about sort of education and the learning and how kids think about science, etc., and what drove me to think the way I think. So it's near the beginning. Andrea is saying, also, I found out via my DNA that I have 2 out of the 3 celiac genes. Yeah. So guess what my profession was before I became sick with leaky gut? She was a baker. Amazing. So she was a baker. hopefully not the taste tester, but you know, there you go, aligning yourself to your genetic profile and who are you supposed to be, right? And you ended up happening to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now that you know, you can understand you are a perfect example of aligning yourself to your genetic habits and truly choosing your health trajectory. Celiac and gut issues is a perfect example of why it's a choice. Now, you know, if Andrea kept going down this path, she would have got sick and she would have said, I have this, I have it, right? I have this thing, whatever it is, whether it's IBS, Crohn's, colitis, something gut tract related would have happened. And she would have said, I have this thing. And the doctor would never have told you why. It would have been, yeah, you have this thing. And there's either surgery or a pill or some kind of treatment and management of the condition. Perfect example of you don't have to have that thing if you know why it happens, the root cause, right? If you know why it happens, it does not need to happen because the why can be removed. And you just gave us a perfect example of that. So now going back to the last thing that I was saying, as you read the chapters on the separate sections, mood, hormones, diet, etc., don't think of them as independent siloed things and processes. Start to understand and don't limit yourself to what I'm saying. Go ahead and be a biomedical explorer yourself. Go ahead and start to interpret what I'm saying and go ahead and perhaps start to think of insights that I haven't thought of yet. Maybe you're going to see something I didn't see, and don't believe that you're restricted to what I've said in terms of the science, right? This is exactly what I did. I see things in mood and behavior and mental health issues that were not taught to me that I interpreted by dealing with people, and they turned out to be true. And so by being a biomedical explorer, you yourself, when reading those chapters, do not read them as a foundation, not as the be all end all. Go ahead and interpret in your context, interpret more and learn more and create more out of that. And what that will that lead you to, the whole point of what I was about to say, is the systems don't end at the systems, they intersect. So mood can affect diet, and diet can affect mood, and hormones can affect mood, and mood can affect hormones, and vice versa. Once you understand the jobs, you know, all of these jobs happening in your body, you can apply them to the problem you're trying to solve. So if you're solving the problem of weight, for example, we would typically start with calories and work, right? Calories and fitness. But if you start interpreting, okay, in mood and behavior, it says I'm a binger. You know, I hold on to my dopamine too long. Oh, so my problem isn't calories, it's I can't count calories. Because when I start eating, it's hard for me to stop because I'm a binger when it truly comes to pleasure, right? Or it may be that, oh, I don't detoxify properly. How is that related to my problem of weight? Well, toxins are stored in fat. So if I'm overly loaded with toxins and I don't detoxify properly, my body's not going to let go of the fat because it's trying to save me from the toxins, right? So once you read it at that level, not at the level of here's what this guy said and that's all I'm supposed to know. No, here's what I now know from this guy. How am I going to interpret this for the problem I'm trying to solve? And the systems intersect and work together. They're not siloed and independent. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to leave you with, is to do what I did, be a biomedical explorer and believe that you can potentially know more than your doctor about this particular subject because you will take the time to focus on it, which they don't have. It's not their fault. They don't have the time for it. It's not what they do. So there's a question here from Tanya. When will the female program start? I've already done the DNA test. My husband has done a program with Dr. Varden. She's amazing. Yeah, Dr. Varden is incredible. We're lucky to have her on our team. So the female program has already started. We just haven't announced it and launched it. So we now have the ability to prescribe hormones. Tanya, if you'd like, I'll drop my email in here. You can connect with me and I'll let you, I'll put you through to the right people depending on what your needs are. So the female hormone program is essentially what your husband went through with Dr. Varden, but we were able to prescribe hormones if needed and precise to your DNA. So we can get really precise about what your body actually needs. And prescribing hormones isn't always the answer. Sometimes it's a supplement to slow down a gene pathway as opposed to add hormones, but whatever it is, we'll figure it out. So we have a few people that have joined the team recently. Dr. Stephanie, who's been working on hormones for over a decade now. I think maybe even close to 2 decades. She's a brilliant nutritionist, and she's also a pharmacologist. And she said her measure of success is not to figure out what pill to prescribe, but to figure out how to get people off a prescription. That's her measure of success. She does it brilliantly. She's recently joined us, and there's other people too, but she leads the team. So anyways, email me and I'll connect you first. We don't need to openly discuss what your issue is here, but privately you can tell me what your problem is, and then I'll put you through the right person, whoever that may be. So that's what I had to share with you. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the book itself, why it was written, have a little bit of a private session with you guys who are pre-ordered, and thank you for that also. And thank you for sort of having confidence on us and to be part of your health journey, right? If there's any other thoughts or questions, I'm here for them. Anything else before we give you your time back and let you go? I want to make sure that we give you a chance to ask whatever you need to ask or any comments. No, nothing else? Okay, so we may do this again sometime from now. You're welcome, Andrea. Thank you for trusting us. We respect that too. Thank you, Jacqueline. We yeah, we know that a whole bunch of people are receiving the book soon, and so we may do this again in a little while and dive deeper with a bigger group. Again, my apologies. There were several hundred people that are registered for this, and then there was a last minute change because of a family issue I had. So most of them weren't able to attend tonight. You guys will see the replay, and you'll hear at least a story that I wanted to tell you about the book. Sort of a little bit of a private story about why it happened, how it happened. Which in itself to me speaks to the importance of the work we're doing, because the universe wanted this to happen. Every publisher said no, and then in 3 days we got a yes from the exact publisher we needed to work with. So this was a thing that was meant to be, had to happen, and it was made to happen. It just sort of came together at the right time. You're welcome, Ruth, and you're welcome, Cindy. Great for you guys to join us. Okay, so there we go, guys. We'll give you some time back, and thank you for joining us tonight. Any other thoughts or questions? We're here. Mahalo from Hawaii, I guess. David, I think David, you were on last night. Okay, so there you go, guys. Thank you for joining us again. I want to make sure we had this time together. For anyone that pre-ordered, again, I apologize to everyone that wasn't able to attend because of the reschedule. Enjoy this replay. I dropped my email in there. If you had questions that you were planning to ask that you weren't able to ask, go ahead and email me and I will answer you directly to make sure you had that chance with that you were promised. Thank you again, guys, and good night.